off air, we were talking a bit about maybe some of the evolution also of religion, and the idea that as human beings evolved and our brains moved from the limbic system, this primitive, impulsive, irrational part of our brain, into the prefrontal cortex, being able to solve problems, execute a plan, and anticipate what will happen next, that the unforeseen consequence of anticipating what will happen next is we understand our mortality. And I just was asking Rabbi Ofer, how might that concept, that human concept of mortality, influence the evolution of God, a godlike figure of a religion?
I don't know. I mean, it certainly influences religion. Whether it influences theological constructs, I'm not sure. But I mean, one of the big things that religion offers people is a way out of dying or a way out of death. Every religion promises you eternal life, either in another dimension or another, like in heaven or in hell, or reincarnation back on this planet. All of that is simply a way to keep the egoic mind that's fantasizing, projecting its own mortality in the future from having to take it too seriously. Sure, I will die, but I will transition to another dimension. As I'm still going, right? It's still me, whatever me is, right? I mean, I'm always fascinated with people who, and you haven't said anything, but I'm going to bring it up only because I think it's apropos to just sort of set some limits. I mean, Tom recently lost, his mom recently died.
This is Larry.
Larry, excuse me, Larry.
Yeah.
So Larry's mother recently died. So what I'm going to say, Larry, just take it with a grain of salt if it doesn't fit your own understanding. But, there are religions who say, okay, so you die and you go to, let's say, heaven, and then you will be with, like my mom is 93. She's going to die sooner rather than later. She thinks she's going to be with my dad, which is very comforting to her. But the question is she going to be with my dad as he was at 89 on all kinds of tubes? Is she going to be with him in the prime of life? Does he grow after death? Is he in heaven and there's like some evolution of his consciousness? Will he know her? Will she recognize? I mean, all these, what we want is what we've got. We just want it outside a mortal frame. And that's a great gift of religion, but I would say it's completely false. I think what happens, you have to know who you are, and who I think I am, who I experience myself to be, is this eyeing that we were talking about. So the analogy of the ocean and the wave, the universe, or God, if you like, is this infinite ocean with, near infinite numbers of waves. And I'm one of them. All of us are one of them. When I die, what happens to me is what happens to a wave. It just gets subsumed back into the ocean. But it doesn't keep waving. It doesn't wave in another dimension. It's just back to the ocean. And the ocean continues to wave, but it never makes the same wave twice. So I'm not into reincarnation either. I'm into recycling. So the wave that was Rami gets, brought back into the ocean, and then the divine waves continues to wave. But religion says, it looks like you die, but you don't. No, it looks like you die because you do. It's an end of that egoic self. And thank God, if you don't mind that phrase, because living forever would be a horror.
Could you just talk about egoic? Because some of our listeners may not know what egoic means.
So what I have in mind is the self that I call myself, the self I think I am when I look in a mirror, right? Mm-hmm. The Rami that has a resume, and the Rami that, has his name on the cover of all these books and all of that. That psychological narrative that I call myself, that's going to die. And that's a healthy thing that it dies, right? It doesn't, it's a necessary thing. It's just the way the universe functions. But religion offers you an off-ramp, so it doesn't happen. Now, if you belong to the wrong religion, then their story would be, oh, you're going to go to hell. I mean, I live in a very red state with a very, I would call a toxic masculine Christianity, where Jesus is more like John Wayne than, a great Hebrew prophet. And many of my Christian neighbors believe not only that I, as a Jew, am going to hell, but those Presbyterians are going to hell, and those Catholics are going to hell, and those Muslims and those Orthodox Christians are going to hell. Anyone who isn't a member of their club is going to hell, because one of the perks of joining their club is to get into heaven. And if you buy that story, and you have to decide which club is right, of course, you can't know until you die. But if you buy that story, joining that specific club is a boon to you, because now, okay, I belong to the Immortals Club, and I don't have to worry about death or the death of people I love, as long as they're part of my club.
Yeah.
I mean, religion is a weird thing, but understandable from a psychological perspective.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that there's so much focus on death, but I like most people, I've spent a lot of time in the shower and on the toilet, and your mind just goes to these things. And I've thought, well, when we fall asleep and we don't dream, we wake up on the other side, like instantaneously. And when we die, if the consciousness is just pure brain and neurons and the manifestation of physical conditions, if we believe that the universe is effectively infinite, or that the cycle of the universe is infinite, who's to say that those conditions won't repeat themselves?
Yeah, right. I mean, infinite number of monkeys, infinite number of time, they'll come up with Hamlet. Sure. I mean, that's how you get Darwin's evolutionary theory in the first place. There's so many, billions and billions of years that eventually blind nature will stumble on something that replicates, and you end up with, with humans eventually. So that's possible, but nobody cares about that. They care about themselves.
Sure.
If I belong to a religion and they say, well, given the infinite universe, all of your molecules will eventually become something else. You go, well, who the hell cares about that? I want to stay me and just move to another dimension. Nobody wants to, I mean, even when the people say, well, my soul goes to heaven, but the soul is just a projection of the ego, the self, the personality. That's the fun of going to heaven. You get to go there as you and have all these wonderful things, whatever they promise you. And that's the fun of believing in hell, because no one believes in hell and says, well, I'm going to hell. Everyone who believes in hell says, I'm going to heaven. You're going to hell. And the fun of believing in hell is knowing that you, as you, that personality that I don't like, you're going to suffer in hell for all eternity. That's the, I mean, it's like the reptilian brain. I don't know, Dr. Joe, what kind of the brain we're talking, what aspect of the brain we're talking about, but it's just primitive, but it's operative. And so people buy into it.
Yeah.
It's not everybody.
Almost, it's like Schadenfreude on steroids.
Yeah, right.
Where somebody is just, you make a mistake and we're gonna love it. But I tell you, there's one mistake that I am not going to make, and that is to not give our sponsors more time to be believed and experienced. Larry, let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show.
Stretch the kindness, rush with madness.